Hello, everyone. Welcome to the estimation episode. So I misestimated how much time I needed before the call. before the call. Sorry about that. Busy chat. Casina, Lorenzo, Angel, Adrian, Balaj, Edgar, Christian, Ramatula, Victor, Sadam. Sadam, hello. It's good to see you. It's been a while. Jose, Casinad, and somebody who has their privacy settings turned on private. Yes. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? So, as you've noticed, we are talking today about estimations. Now, I already did this topic once, and we sort of gave it a tactical twist on how to approach estimations as an engineer towards a process that is focused on providing estimates, right? So that was tactical. That was somebody is asking for estimates, and then what is the best way to what is the best way to give the estimates to somebody who is asking for them from the context of engineer to engineering manager, let's say. That was the previous context. I think it was 6 episodes ago. Winter is coming. Denise is a sweater. Yeah, it got quite cold suddenly. So no more white shirt. I mean, white shirt is still there. My sort of signature white shirts. But it has been getting cold, and I like keeping the window open for fresh air. And of course, you have to compromise. Kalayan, hello. Kalayan Svetko, I believe I pronounced that name correctly. We already had a question in chat. I would like to address that before we move forward. So Casina asked, what if I gave the wrong estimate to my team and was not able to deliver my task? Should I overestimate in the starting itself? If so, how my team will feel? Thanks. That's a great question. I'm putting it on screen, and I'm also just going to read out the agenda real quick. If for nothing else, to hold myself accountable to to the episode. So agenda for today. Number 1, why estimate? Number 2, which kinds of estimations provide certainty, provide guarantees? And number 3, how to collaborate with your stakeholders. So collaborate in communication rather than arguing about the estimates. So what you definitely want is to negotiate, collaborate, work with. What you don't want to do is to argue about the constraints surrounding the estimates. That's a waste of time. And I think this question really nails down that last bit. So let's start with that. Maybe I got the agenda wrong. Maybe I misestimated in what order I should do the. And again, that's not an estimation, but I'll get to that. So for context, before I answer this question, I did publish a post today on this very topic. So the topic was this one on Crafting Tech Teams, my newsletter. And it basically highlights the terminology I will use today is basically these two, is estimates and configurations. Now, there might be a better way for configurations. You might call it a plan. You might call it a cost risk benefit analysis. You might call it a roadmap. You might call it whatever. The point here is that estimations are something that you can measure, how much, how long, how often, how frequently. What else did I mention here? How much, how often, how many, how long, right? So these are generally linear things that you can measure, and then you might say there's a mean or a median, and it has a little bit of error at the end. But these things are linear. These things are predictable. These things are knowable. This is what an estimate is. Now, what's really going on in project management is something else, is this, where there's, and I rather use this one, where there's multiple things to be done. They have dependencies, so it's more like a floor plan in a building. Then you ask the question, which one first? Which one now? Which one next? Which one later? Do we need all of them? How should they be connected? And this becomes a traveling salesman problem. It's like, what configuration do I want? Well, you can have infinite amounts of configurations. You can do this one first, and then those 7, or number 4 first, and then that one, right? And that's what Scrum and Kanban and all the sort of project management methodologies that have backlogs want you to be focusing on configuration. It's like, in what order are we doing work? Now, this becomes extremely complex if 7 people are working on 7 different things at the same time, because then if 7 people are working on 7 different things, they will finish on 7 different times, 7 different points in time. So it'll give this illusion that in order for the configuration to be known, we need estimates on what everybody is working on. And that's where the problem starts, right? Because estimates are linear and knowable and simple. Configurations are exponential. They grow, they scale, they are always a whole. It's like a chess game. Imagine, I like to think I'm a good chess player. I struggle thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead. That's what projects are. We need to think 2 or 3 moves ahead. The better you are at management, the more you can think ahead. But estimates don't give you this. It's the configuration that gives you this. Right? It's the best configuration of asking yourself, what's next? What do I do now? What's next? What do we definitely not do now and do it later? Maybe. Right? It's this separation from what are we committed to doing right now, and then what's next. And how much of the team can do, number one, this one thing right now with us. How many boxes should be parallelized? Well, 2 small ones or 1 large one. So these are relative. This is what, and I saw, this is what poker estimation and t-shirt size is all about. And I saw a LinkedIn post about this recently about, somebody fixed the cards. It says 1, and then 1 and 2 F in large and no F in clue. Like, those were the 3 cards rather than 1, 3, and 5. Because 1, 3, and 5 gives the illusion that it's linear, like estimates are. But we don't do that. We don't do poker planning for that reason. We do poker planning because it's exponential, and we want to understand, these are our constraints, this is our budget. Do we want to do 2 1s or break up one of those no F in clues or 2 F in larges? Right? That's the point. Is it actionable? Can we work on it? No, we need to break it up. That's the idea behind it. So when the team says no F in clue, unanimously, you stop work and you plan and you break up the requirements. And then you do requirements gathering, which is the most important part. But I digress. So I'm going to stop sharing this. You can find this on my newsletter because I can't see you on the screen. And I suppose I missed some chat. Yes, I did miss some questions in chat already. Jason, yes, this is live on 2 platforms, YouTube and LinkedIn, and both of them have recordings right now. So even if you missed it right now, you can go to YouTube and scroll it back and watch it from the beginning, and then you'll just be a few minutes behind and still be able to interact in chat. Ty, I'll get to your question in a bit. And before I forget, I want to refresh my secondary chat because I always lose these chat messages. So, Kasinat, your question. Let's break it up. So, if I gave my wrong estimate, I was not delivered on my task. That's cool. That can happen. See, the problem is not if you estimate something. The point isn't that the point isn't that we estimate something and then the estimate creates a deadline. That's not the point of an estimate, right? So the point of an estimate is to say, I think I'll be done on Tuesday. If today is Monday, sorry, it's a bad example. If today is Monday, you say, I think I am done on Wednesday, right? That's an estimate. It's linear. It's on the calendar. It is measured in absolute terms. Today is Monday, yes. 2 days from now is Wednesday, yes. If you get sick tomorrow, then maybe it's safe to assume that you're going to be finished Thursday instead, right? So these are linear. So the math makes sense. So if you don't deliver your task, the problem that occurs that, let's say, from a coaching perspective is, do I know that you won't deliver your task on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday? right? And the point of the estimate is to give guarantees, is to get guarantees in advance of being late on the deadline. That's why we estimate. That's point number one. Why do we estimate? We estimate because the stakeholders value the guarantees of outcome, the certainty of the outcome, more than they do getting the outcome sooner. So if you say maybe it can be done in a month, stakeholders are like, hell no, I'm not signing that. If you say we will definitely be done in 2 months, they're like, let's do this. Now, they might be naive, you might be unprofessional, you might be incompetent, or you might be very uninformed about what can go wrong and have the wrong incentives in place. You might guarantee that it will be done in 2 months, and then shame on you, something goes wrong and you don't report. Right? So the point isn't that we estimate. The point is that we continuously communicate what is it exactly that we guaranteed. So okay, as the first part of the question, what if you can't deliver on my task? I would say try to get on every day. Let's make it simple. On every day, if tasks are more than 1 day, every day. If tasks are less than 1 day, every hour. That would be the best cadence. So every unit, communicate whether you'll be able to make it, right? Because you're always guessing. The worst thing that can happen is if you're 40% done and 0% deployable. We talked about this last week on trunk-based development. And that's one of the main reasons why I encourage trunk-based development. See, because if you have an architect, your team, your engineering manager, I want to see what your code does in the mainline branch. If I see your code growing and the amount of tests that cover the positive use case is growing, I need no estimates. Because I see how far along you are, because there are things that are done that I can see. Because I can check it out and run the tests, and if that confirms that you walk the walk, not just talk your way through estimates, then I'm calm. Then I won't bother you with estimates. Then there's no problem with not being able to deliver on your task. I can see what's done. The problem is if you don't deliver on your task, and what I can see is 0. Because now if I ask you, then Ty's question comes in. That's nice, Dennis, but when are we done? And how much does it cost? Right? So if this happens to you, I didn't deliver on my tasks, you will be asked what Ty suggested. But when will you be? You already told me 2 days. You have 0 to show right now. When will you be done? And this is today's topic, because everybody goes wrong here. The person asking, whether they're technical, non-technical, the person answering, whether they're an engineer, a senior, a junior, everybody gets this wrong. Because it's very hard, and it's very easy to get baited into this trap and then talk nonsense and then just argue. Because when somebody asks you, when somebody asks you to essentially guess what is our progress, what you don't want to be talking about is how much is left. Because you've just shown evidence, you have data that you have no idea. So don't guess. The estimate was a guess, it's off, so don't try to estimate now what percentage of that wrong estimate you think you are now doing. Right? So that is definitely the wrong behavior to engage in. What you should be doing is when you know that you're 40% done and your estimate is off, talk about the part that is done. This is what I have. And rather than continuing work, wrap up what you have, merge it, test it, and release it to the user. This will have two consequences. Either what you created in the first 40% is actually valuable, and that's exactly what they wanted, which is good, which means that maybe the stakeholder wants to negotiate with you on whether we should do the other 60%. Maybe you actually got where you wanted to in the estimate, but you didn't ask for feedback fast enough. And that's why somebody interrupted you and asked, hey, is it done? When will this be done? Can we see something? Can we show something? Because it's the feedback cycle that they want to shorten. Because the feedback cycle is what gives people guarantees, not the estimates. Estimates do not give guarantees of outcome. In fact, estimates make it worse. Estimates give an illusion that outcome is guaranteed, And then if you break that illusion, a whole bunch of things goes wrong. People get angry, people get disappointed, people feel betrayed. Like the emotional roller coaster of where this goes is just, if somebody's already pipped, they might get fired. If somebody's unhappy with somebody else's work, they might also use it as an excuse never to estimate. And then people go into extremes. Let's plan everything to the detail, or let's just do #no estimates because our estimates are wrong anyway. And the extremes also don't work, because you need to understand what the root cause is. So to recap, if you don't make the estimate and you did estimate, don't try to now estimate your progress when you ask it again. Stop the conversation. Just say, this is what's done. Focus on what's done, not on what's not done. Because what's done is actionable, absolute, concrete data. What's not done is just more speculation on top of speculation. Don't speculate. You're an engineer. Use data. When possible, use the data you have. This is what Agile is about. It's about shortening the cadence and increasing the frequency of the feedback cycle, so that when you make decisions with real data, not with speculative things that you might deploy 2 months from now. So when this happens, focus on what's done and get it done. Merge it to trunk, merge it to master, test it, get feedback on it, review it, deploy it, check if it's valuable. I see. I interrupted myself. One of two things will happen. Either what you created was valuable and it's good, or what you were working on up until now, which is let's say 40% done, is not valuable. Now you need to ask yourself an important question. If what I was working on, and this is 40% done, and it's not valuable, why am I working on it? Is the value somewhere along the, it's like 40% is not valuable, 50% is not valuable, 60% is not valuable. When I get to 100%, then it's suddenly magically valuable? Is that how it works? It's very rare for a feature to have such properties. And usually it is a very small part of the feature that has this property. Now the point is, the client probably only needed that little part of the feature in the first place, plus maybe some UI around it. That's what our job is. Our job is to figure out which parts are that really important bit that make it done, that make it valuable. And in discovering that what I was working on is not valuable is in itself valuable. Because I know that actually, what I was working on is just glue code and configs and the skeleton, but I didn't actually work on the important part of the domain yet. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe I should start working on that sooner, because I already encountered in complexity in the project setup. Maybe there's even worse complexity in the domain. So maybe my estimates are not off by 2x. Maybe my estimates are off by 10x. Right? That's important information that you want to act upon. And to answer your last question, you don't want the counter argument being late on your estimates by just giving another estimate. As far as I'm concerned, if you give me an estimate, I don't put much faith on it. I will ask you, what will you guarantee to? If you tell me it's going to take a week, I will ask you, what can you guarantee to be deployed in a day? Because the weekly estimate I find useful, but what I really find more useful is, as your manager, is what can you guarantee to deploy tomorrow? What is the smallest thing you can guarantee to deploy tomorrow? Even if you just know that we understand the problem and it's integratable, what can you guarantee tomorrow? And if you can't guarantee that, if that what you guarantee takes 2 days, not one, then I'll also use the same level of scrutiny on your original estimate, and then that calms me down because I'll have more information to work off of. We made a lot of noise in the chat, right? So I think that addresses your question. We will be circling back around this because this is the same topic essentially. Winter is coming. This is, wait, who is this? Do you mind if I mention your name on stream? So this is our viewer from Kosovo, I believe. Let me see, let me refresh real quick. Because they said, oh no, that's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. I mentioned your name before, so if that's a problem, let me know. Okay, I'm not able to estimate parentheses deadline. It's so difficult for me. I'm always working on something I've never done and also seen nowhere. How to tell people that I can deliver? I cannot see into the future. That's a very good question. So there's also another question. Estimates are projections, not promises. And I heavily disagree with this. This is the sort of engineering cop-out response that is fear-based, that is sort of leading off of this question from Thomas. The temptation is, if I give up, I will say, my estimates are not projections. If you use my estimate as projections, it's your fault. The point is to not even give the estimates in the first place. If you don't want your estimates to be used as projections, don't give estimates. Because when you give estimates, you're giving a guarantee on a linear thing. But if you're not working on a linear thing, then the estimates should not be provided either. Right? So, or you can just say, maybe, maybe a month or two. And then they ask you, can you be more exact? Then you need to have that conversation. You need to have the conversation you don't want to have. What part of the conversation do you find difficult? So to answer this question, Thomas, you want to understand where the person asking for estimates comes from. See, stakeholders generally want to do two things. They want to push something onto the market, which means that they need to know there's a delay, let's say, between when engineering will be done and when some other downstream activities will occur. Maybe that's advertising spend. Maybe that's marketing. Maybe that will be training people to use the new feature. Maybe that will be communicating to the users that there's a new feature coming, right? So generally, there's two things happening. Either there's demand being created. It's like you are building this new thing. Okay, while you're building it, I will create demand. So if you can show me something along the way, I can use your materials to create more demand. That's one thing. The other thing that can happen is that there already is demand, and now customer service needs to calm everybody down and tell them, we're working on this, but it's bigger than we expected, so it's going to be done sort of midway next week. That's the other part, right? So either you need to promise something to calm people down, or you need to create and understand what should be promised so that demand arrives basically at the point where you capture revenue, where you capture leads, where you capture new sales. And especially from the context of like a small to medium business, or maybe enterprise SaaS, data products, typical web app, web SaaS projects. I think that's most of them, most of my audience. So the question here particularly being how to tell people that I can deliver. So what you want to do is there are multiple ways about this, and it depends on your personality as well. So what you definitely want to be doing is I can recommend reading the book, The Fearless Organization, right? So you don't want to give a fear-based response. If I say I don't know, they will judge me for being incompetent. That's what you want to avoid. And that's exactly what you should be doing more of. You should build up your resistance to this negative self-talk by saying, you know what, I don't know, but this is what I'm going to do. And to do that with confidence. I don't know how long this is going to take. So I'm going to do this for 2 days now, and I estimate doing this for 2 days to then figure out if that thing can be done in a month. That is useful. And then you're actually working towards finishing that thing, but you're trying to understand, in a perfect world, if I could hack it together really roughly, bare bone, what would I include? Which features would it have? What moving parts would it have? Because the failed prototype, the failed experiment, thinking this way, is also useful. I mean, it's even more useful than the estimate, because if you said, if I do 10% of the project and I can't do it in 10% of the time, then I misunderstand how complex the project is. And that's useful, right? So then you say, you know what, the estimate I gave you, that's off. Because if my estimate was correct, then I would have been able to do the critical component in a quarter of the time, or half of the time, or 1/10 of the time. Now, you need to pick some level of cadence here that you can sort of trade off of. Because you need to do both. You need to create demand or have proof of competence, but you also want to be able to not spend the entire budget. That was That was Kasinat's question earlier, right? So when I give an estimate, you essentially get a budget, and you don't want to wait until the end of the budget to give the bad news. Right? So if you give an estimate, the longer the estimate, the more you want to break it down into smaller pieces. It's like, I estimate this will be done in 2 months, but that's always flaky. So I will try to give you guarantees for end of this week, and then we will re-estimate the project. That's how I will tackle that conversation. Because you want to expose that, you know what? I actually don't know, and there is a risk in not knowing, and I'll manage the risk. You don't have to, because you don't know how to manage the risk. You're non-technical. I am. Right? That's how you would have a conversation with a non-technical stakeholder. It's like, nobody knows, and this is what I'm going to do to create knowledge. And then that created knowledge then creates certainty and guarantee of outcomes. And stakeholders will wait. They will prefer doing it longer because they generally, I'm generalizing, I'm sorry, but stakeholders generally value guarantees of outcome more than they do getting to market cheap, sooner or more cheaply. If you tell them, yeah, maybe in a month, somebody's sweating already, and they will want to micromanage, and then their micromanagement will make it last longer, or there'll be too many meetings, or there'll be too many conversations about estimates, which is time spent that you could be spending on the project itself. The conversations and meetings you want to have is, should we continue with this? It should never be, can you estimate it in such a way that would make it palatable for my appetite and budget? That conversation is always pointless. Because, we have questions. How about I answer the questions? Thomas, let me know if that addressed your question. Ty, what's a good way, in your opinion, to tackle new projects where there is high uncertainty? I would say do the why conversation from Jonathan Stark. Try to make the project go away. Right? So talk about all the risks involved with project. If you do this, we can do all the other things. We might say this takes 3 months, but it might take 6. How long into the project would we like to know if that's the case? Right? So if 2 months into the project we learn that it's 6, when would we cancel it? What is the risk involved? What is the no-go zone of, if it's beyond this budget and it's not done by that point, I'm canceling. Those parameters you want known ahead of starting to code, because they're always known. The stakeholders always have a deadline. They already have a budget. They already have a deadline. They don't need estimates. They just want to know what fits and what can be guaranteed to fit within their budget and timeline. That's different. That's a scoping conversation. That is not a quality and effort conversation. The quality of an effort is constant if the team is constant. Right? If it's a long project, you might need to hire somebody to do this project. Then estimation is way out of scope. Right? Because then you need to estimate, well, okay, it's going to take us this many years to create the team, and then it's going to take us 6 months to create a prototype, and then in 5 months the company will go public and we will have amazing profits, and this is a unicorn startup. Like, that's never going to happen. That's what VCs do on seed rounds, and that's already hard enough. Like, that level of speculation is hard enough, and everybody knows that it's an estimate and it's speculative and it's way off, and chance of success is 4%. But at least there, everybody knows that it's risky. But they also expect high payoff. Now, in software, this is not the case. Usually, any code we generate is a liability. It's not an asset that will suddenly grow 10x or 40x of how much development effort it took to create it. So demand has to be generated. So if you just willy-nilly estimate stuff and you build it, it's likely that you're building the wrong things, and estimation is a waste on top of building the wrong thing, right? So to answer your question, how to tackle a new project where the uncertainty is high, try to make the project go away. Try to make the project go away so you'll learn what, if uncertainty is high, there's risk involved. The value also needs to match the level of risk. If the value is low and the risk is high, make the project go away, and while trying to make the project go away, it will stay away. If the project doesn't go away, then there is value, or a potential of value, then I would say focus on testing that. Somebody thinks this is really valuable despite the risks. Okay, try to validate that. Test it on the market. Build a prototype. I wouldn't say build an MVP because that can mean many things. And Ty, you'll be talking about it. You're streaming tomorrow about this. So I would love to hear your thoughts. I don't want to go too much on a tangent about that. But when there is value to risk balancing to be done, if you know that the value exists and you can test it in the market, or if you can't test it in the market, do that first. Create demand, test it on the market. Build a very rough version of the feature. If you have billions of microservices and you have to integrate with everything, try to avoid your project. Go around your project. Don't make it greenfield, but make it brownfield in the sense that you don't want to incorporate it into a giant big ball of mud and then be pulled down with that giant monolith that you might be integrating a test feature into. Just test the feature in isolation. Do a press release, do a mock press release, do a beta test, like a sign up for, hey, we're testing this new feature next month. Sign up if you're interested. And then if there's no sign-ups, then don't build it. That's product-led growth, essentially, where you build a product, you tease it, and then if nobody signs up, don't build it. Or you might start building it, and if nobody signs up, don't build it. This might be a bit more difficult in B2B SaaS companies because the lead time to closing a lead is 6 to 9 months. So with them, this has to be personal. This has to be nurtured. So generally, your marketing and sales team will require something of you, maybe some engineering deliverable that they can use to create demand with the client. It's like, we're building this. This is what it looks like right now. It'll be done then and then possibly. This is what it'll be capable of. That's what they want. It's guarantees of, yeah, we can do this. And this is possible in the timeline. This is not possible in the timeline. And then giving people certain guarantees of, does it come to market? Did we abandon it? Is this a good idea? Is this not a good idea? This happens a lot in game development as well. You have test phases. You play test it. Any game that was not play tested is terrible on launch. And everybody complains that, oh, I'm just testing the game now because everything's broken and it's bugged and my features don't work and there's quality of life things missing. And then everybody complains. And then what do? They just start refunding the game. And then you go from the 15% market average of refunds, you go to 60%. And then, yay, it looked good on day one, and then the refunds kicked in. This can also happen to you in traditional retail, where you might be extremely aggressive on acquisition, right? So the software development process of acquiring features is aggressive, and then retention sucks. And then, you create all these features, but then you don't have time to support them, you don't have time to maintain them, quality was crap. It's very hard to change them. And that's the definition of legacy code by, Michael Feathers. Uses the definition of legacy code, which says hard to maintain, hard to change, not test covered. It's possible that if you're not taking your work seriously and you were led to believe by estimates that somebody said, oh, that's a nice estimate, that means that this is worth building. It's possible that if you're rushing too much, you're already creating legacy code by the time you deploy it. That by the time you deploy it is already worthless. It's already a liability. And so that is what you as a craftsperson, as an engineer, are responsible for. To try to make things go away. Say no to more things. So Kalayan mentioned estimates are projections, not promises. I wouldn't say estimates are projections, right? Because estimates don't project anything. I can tell you this feature takes 6 hours. Now you don't know what that means. I might work 2 hours on it in the next 3 days each. So it'll take 4 days on the calendar, right? So the problem with estimation and projections is that one of them is cycle time in typical DORA terms or lean value stream mapping. I think it's quite a universal term, cycle time and lead time. Cycle time would mean, okay, internally, netto, how much effort was spent. And then you have lead time. It's like from request from a stakeholder or customer, how many calendar days did it take to finish? So if I tell you it's going to take 6 hours, but it takes me 2 weeks to invest those 6 hours, then my cycle time was 6 hours and my lead time was 2 weeks. So my pipeline efficiency is extremely low. So my flow rate is extremely low. So it's that flow rate that I should be optimizing, not my estimates. The fact that I gave an estimate was nonsense, because when I said to somebody it's going to be 6 hours, they don't know if it arrived. Wait, 6 hours? It's 9 a.m. So it's going to be done today. If you stay till 6 p.m., it's like, no, of course not. Maybe Friday. And then, that conversation then doesn't make sense. So I wouldn't say estimates are projections. Projections are generally for configurations, like in the article that I linked in the beginning. Meaning that we need to decide what's now, what's next, what's later. Those are projections. It's like, in how many different ways can I configure this project, and which one makes sense? What is my definition of this is better? This is better than that configuration. What is the criteria? What do we want? Go to market faster, get feedback faster. And my recommendation for all new teams that are experimenting with features that don't have like a major feature that works, but they're sort of trying to figure out what to do, is create market demand. So create features that help the sales team or the product ownership, the product team, to create demand on the market. So you can have proof that what you're building has market demand, and then you can match the intensity of the features you're building and how many features you're building and what the quality of the features is to the intensity of the market demand, and scale. And number two, will it escape me? Did I forget? Oh my god. Such a banger point to make here. Yes, so create market demand externally, and internally, the second thing, create knowledge. If you're at the beginning of the project, you have no idea what's going on. You have no idea what's important. You have no idea why our user would use it. You have no idea what to name things. You have no idea which features are important, which features are not important, which features are sort of a secondary downstream problem of working on top of a mess rather than a clean greenfield project. And do we know how to alleviate the mess? Did we create the mess? Are we now creating another mess? Right. So it's this separation of, are we building the right thing, or are we building it the right way? Right. So you want to balance these two: create demand, create knowledge. Create demand, create knowledge. The earlier you are in a project, the more you want to maximize creating knowledge and creating demand. What you definitely don't want to do is go balls to the walls on feature development at the beginning of the project. You want to plan, you want to think, you want to learn. What you don't want to do is just create a bunch of code at the beginning of the project and you have no idea what to do with it. And then you're sort of trying to sort of push it up to the market and hope that, things will be okay. The deadline's coming. Is somebody waiting for it? No, but the deadline's there. So we need to be done so that we can start working on something else. That's a waste of time. That's a feature factory. That's a cost center. It's much cheaper to not do anything at all. Right? So you're already spending money on the engineers. That money's gone. If they create code on top of that, it's even worse, because any code created is a liability. Right? So not only does it need to counterbalance the salaries you're paying them, they also need to counterbalance the technical debt and the liabilities that it creates by just owning the code because of extra maintenance, deployment effort, infrastructure costs, etc. I will check this link out though. This is an image. Let me just check out the image. I can't click it here for some reason. Thanks for the conversation starter, by the way. This is great. Let me find the image real quick so I can... yeah, there it is. This is an image of what? This is an image of, we'll ask for estimate and then treat them as deadlines. Okay, so that was a little bit of a meme. Okay, let's continue. Bogdan, love that Fisher-Price puppy from the background. I have two of these puppies like this. Wrong thing. Is that from the meme picture? I'm not sure. Oh, that one. Oh, the puppies. Yeah, no, we got them as a gift for the kids a while ago. I think they're a bit too young still. They don't quite get that you can configure the puppy and they can talk to it. So that's still coming, but we're getting excited. Right now, it's interesting enough and colorful to be on the Djembe. Let's see. That we did. Bogdan, what do you think about using t-shirt sizing to estimate effort? It can enhance collaboration and communication with the team during the planning process by establishing a common language, understanding the relative size and complexity of work. I think we're reading too much value into t-shirt sizing. T-shirt sizing, as I mentioned earlier, is ideally in its fixed form. So not small, medium, large, but instead 1, 2 effing big, and no effing clue. Those are the best t-shirt sizes, right? Because you don't want to create the illusion that this is a linear scale. Whenever you're t-shirt sizing and you're relatively comparing things, you are creating a configuration. You want to know, should we do this first, or then that first, or then that first? And the estimate shouldn't impact how, in what order you do them. What you should be really thinking about is the cost of delay of not doing them. And the estimate won't tell you that. Because the cost of delay of not doing it requires that you understand the value of creating the object, not the effort needed to create it. And usually the value provided by the finished feature is of very different complexity than the effort required, right? So if something takes, if there's 100 features in the system, 2 of them will drive primary revenue. Maybe 10 of them will support those 2 primary revenue driver. Now you need to build all 100 of them to figure out which of those 10 and 2 are the primary revenue drivers, because you might not know. So you need to create that knowledge, and you need to create that market demand. You can't just go to the finish line and hope that you're building the right thing from day one. You might have to go to the entire distribution and actually create a bunch of features that you don't need just to figure out which ones the users actually respond to. The problem is that it would be naive to think that the effort it took to build those 98 have anything to do with those 2 primary revenue drivers. It didn't take us this much effort to create that revenue. It took us this much effort to create the knowledge to now understand that this is what users want. But now that we understand it, we can build it in 2% of the effort required compared to originally. That's why these kinds of efforts are extremely wasteful. It's because we are making expensive decisions, i.e. writing code and hiring engineers, at the point when we have the least amount of knowledge, at the point where we have the least amount of certainty. So t-shirt sizing, I wouldn't do. T-shirt sizing is a game played to give the illusion of certainty, and I have never seen t-shirt sizing provide certainty. T-shirt sizing is actually not meant to estimate effort. The output of t-shirt sizing is to figure out which tasks are too large, right? So we have I can share. T-shirt sizes are about this issue of the yellow box. Wait, let's do this. T-shirt sizes are about having these boxes, and t-shirt sizes say that everything that isn't small should not be worked on. That's the idea behind t-shirt sizes, is that a t-shirt size of small is my ideal feedback frequency, right? So let's say that's an hour or maybe a day, right? So whatever we work on, I want feedback on it the next day, which means that we need to estimate the relative size of things so that we do not start work on anything that cannot give feedback within a day, within the next calendar business day. So when there's a ticket, a task that the team says no effing clue, or 8, or whatever Fibonacci scale you're using, or exponential or Fibonacci scale, or logarithmic scale, not logarithmic, or polynomial scales that you might be using, you don't have to have a conversation of, no, this is an 8. This means that our ideal feedback frequency is 1, and this one will only give us feedback next week. Which means that if you're not on time, we will be moving in the wrong direction for a week. That we don't want. I want to know tomorrow if you're moving in the wrong direction. And that's why you do t-shirt size estimations, is that you expose those big chunks that are too large to be introduced into the pipeline. So the team then says, no, too large. If it's too large, we don't understand the value, break it down, work on something else. And then the team either works on breaking it down or not work on it at all. Because if somebody says, I don't want to invest time into you guys breaking this ticket down, it's probably not important. If it's not important to break down the ticket into smaller pieces so that the valuable thing can be delivered sooner, it's not worth working on. You shouldn't be working on something where somebody says, "No, I don't want you to plan it. Just start building it." Cancel such a task, please. That is the biggest waste ever. That's somebody putting something of their wish list in the pipeline only because they have the illusion that it's a low-hanging fruit and it's easy to do. But if it wasn't easy to do, it's your fault. And they should be accountable. So the accountability structure should not be absorbed by the team. And that generally the engineering side of the things are so inexperienced. The number of engineers doubles every 5 years or every year, which means that every year the median experience of an engineer decreases. And right now, I think the average experience of an engineer is less than 6 years, which means that anybody who you hire, if they're not stellar, an exemplar engineer, that means they will have no experience in pushing back on requests like this. So t-shirt sizing is not about estimating effort. T-shirt sizing is about estimating whether something is too large to be even put in and considered for the pipeline. And then you want to open up this discussion and say, hey, this is too large. Is it worth enough? Is it worth enough for us to now work on planning this with you so that we split it up into smaller increments? If they say no, you cancel it from the project. You just got it. You don't move it back to the icebox or the backlog. You delete it. That's the whole point with Kanban and things like Scrum, is that the post-its are supposed to be deleted. They're not supposed to be kept in the archive forever like they are in Jira. I have not seen t-shirt sizing be a positive contributing factor compared to, in contrast to trunk-based development or continuous integration, which are a significant booster to productivity. But if you're working on the wrong thing, then TBD and continuous integration will also expose that you're working on the wrong thing much faster, right? And sometimes we mistake, TBD, we started doing TBD, but then the pipeline told us that we're working on the wrong thing and it doesn't work. And maybe that's just the reality, but you're not honest and earnest enough about the signal that it's providing you. Great question, Bogdan. Thank you. Wow, it takes me like 25 minutes to get to each question. I should answer in a shorter format. Okay, stop screen share. Let's go with Ty's question while I refresh, get the chat up. Let's say you're building a new product. There's no team yet. Estimates at that point are guesswork. Estimates are always guesswork. But you still want to know what is the chance of success. That is a great point. And what level of investment is appropriate? Is it 10K, 50K, 1 million? Well, when somebody says this to me, I would not estimate the project in the terms of, how much does it cost? I would flip it around instead. I would say, well, I can invest 10K, 50K, or $1 million. If I want to, I have no money. So if I invest 10K, I can bootstrap that. If I invest 50K, I need an investor. And if I invest 1 million, I need a long-term strategy and I get VC funding, right? So all of those are kind of available to me, but they're a lot of work. What can I get for 10K? What can I get for 50K? What can I get for 1 million? And if the answer is for 50K, you get the same thing as you do it for 10K, but less risky. And we don't know what you get for 1 million because we can't differentiate million from 50K right now, because if we don't know enough about the product, then that person should gravitate towards the 10K, 50K range. That is valuable enough. That is actionable enough. Because if there's no team, then the real upstream estimation task is not upstream. So there's a business stakeholder right now and they don't have an engineering team and they want to hire one, but they want to know how complex the project is so that they know, should they hire 1 person or 10 people? I would always say that you can't run a business like that. What you need to do is you need to hire 1 person first who will help you create demand for the product. Once you create demand for the product, you can actually test whether you can fulfill some part of that demand, and then you scale it. But you need to start somewhere. You can't start with building the thing you want 2 years from now. You can't start there. That is a fool's errand. Right? So you're building a new product. If this is if this is not a fresh company, if this is a company that already exists, then somebody within the company should make a, let's say, cost benefit risk analysis of, is this new product similar to anything we already have? Who should be working on this? What do they think? Which people, what team do we need to make this a success? If we have 10K, what kind of team do we need to make this a success? If we have 50K, what kind of team do we need to make this a success? If we have zero budget, how can we do this for free? Now, that is usually the best answer. If I had a budget of zero, how can I make this for free? And that gets you like really rough hackathon level product ideas. And a lot of companies do hackathons like that. They do it for free. They give off some prize money, and then they pay for the best solution. And perhaps in some organizations that is the answer. Don't estimate it. Organize a hackathon. Don't try to build a product, build a landing page for the product. See if there's market demand. Then, depending on how you price it and what the market demand is, once you have market demand, you can survey these people. You can ask them a product-oriented survey. How much would they pay for this? You put one and one together, and then you see how much cash flow would the early adopters give you. Can you bootstrap it yourself to sort of get this machine rolling, or would you rather be a unicorn startup and now use this as proof for a VC, for a VC to sort of back you into just getting through the prototype much faster, and then start building that large thing because you already have proof of viability, market viability, let's say. But this is all speculative. It's the product and the business strategy that's speculative, not the estimates of the engineers, right? So the product is risky enough. Just de-risk the team and try not to lie. Try not to guess too much. Just work on data. Okay. Great questions, Ty. Thanks for being on the stream live. Victor, how about when releasing to production is not an option? For example, a guidance system for a robotic arm intended to be used in surgery. I don't have a lot of experience in these industries per se, but from what I've gathered from the book, Implementing Lean Software Development, this is usually a good scenario for set-based design and set-based planning. This is used for aerospace, for pharmaceuticals, meditech, rocket engineering, aerospace. No, so rockets, planes, and satellites. Anything space grade, and Formula One cars as well. And hardware operations, embedded systems that go with the hardware itself. And what set-based is basically is they say, we don't know what will work, and all of our decisions are irreversible, and our go-to market test has to be the thing that goes to market, right? So if we go to market and then that's not the thing, there is a delay of, let's say, a year of us trying something else, right? So the best strategy that I know of, and this is just from the book, I haven't worked on a project like this yet, or in an industry like this, is build 3 things in parallel, or 2 things, or 4 things. Build a rough prototype that will make the deadline, but it's kind of poo-poo. A middle end version where this is sort of the safe approach. It's okay quality, okay features, but it's not spectacular, but it's much better than that poo-poo. And you don't know whether this middle one reaches the deadline. And then there's the really balls to the walls, everything is quality, everything is being analyzed, everything is being done perfectly as much as they can. Everything, the experiments, greenfield. And then you do the 3 of these in parallel. And then towards the end of the deadline, or the middle of the deadline, or some milestones, you decide, okay, which one are we most likely to go to market with? And usually it's the first 2. But then as the work continues, you might find that, actually, we can go. Number 1 is finished, but it's kind of bad. Number 2 is almost finished, but it's much better on the core features. So what we can do is we can take the core features from the middle area and then try to now stop work on the first one and get that team to collaborate with the middle one and get them to get that rough version on everything that is non-core, non-primary into this version of the product. But the third team, even though they will not make the deadline, have made an important discovery. I think we should incorporate that little subsystem or that little algorithm that they discovered into this middle section. And then that's what you go to the market with, right? Because all these decisions are irreversible. So you just keep building 3 different ones, and then you just keep putting them together and reconfigure them, essentially, right? So you're just building 3 lanes in parallel, and then you're re-optimizing the configuration of what you're going to market with. But you're dealing with done stuff, right? So you're not estimating, and maybe it'll be done, maybe it will not be done. But you're just working with redundancy, essentially. And you mentioned guidance systems. You would want to have redundancy in a project like that. Right, so we're definitely going to market. There are downstream consequences to manufacturing and logistics. So we either go with this one and it's kind of gonna be shit, and then we'll update it later, and we'll do like a rolling update, midway Q3 next year. We'll have a firmware update, or we manage to do it now, but it's not gonna be perfect, and then we do a firmware update on what we didn't finish. But at least the subsystem will be there on that poo-poo version, of the lightest version. That is the best advice that I can give you. If you want to learn more, I suggest you pick up this book, Implementing Lean Software Development by Mary Anton Poppendick. I just need to turn on the lights. Great question, Victor. Thank you. Okay. Yes, I do indeed have legs. Victor. Bogdan responding on the previous question. Yes, but it's more about distinguishing between rocks and sand, such as you don't focus on filling the cup with sand first. I agree. So basically, you don't want to optimize for your team to be busy. This rock and sand analogy, it seems like you don't want engineers to be sort of doing nothing. And that's exactly what you want to encourage more. You want to encourage, rather than each engineer finishing their own task, you should optimize the amount of times that the engineers aren't doing the thing they're assigned to, but instead they take a look around and check, does anybody need my help? And you want to foster this collaborative aspect of your team. Because if somebody is blocked, or if somebody is working on the wrong thing, you don't want to automate and optimize a pipeline where a large, non-trivial percentage of the workforce is working on the wrong thing. You don't want to optimize that. You do not want to make that go faster. Right? So you want to optimize the entire value stream, not just the engineering department. So you should try to make it go as slow as possible on the capacity side, so that each individual element flows as fast as possible through the pipe. You've probably seen this on pipes or even servers, right? If your laptop is at 100% utilization, it will slow down. At 80%, it works amazing, but at 100%, it's like about to crash. Right? So you don't want to create planning strategies that bring the team on, to the edge of their capacity, and then everything slows down. Nobody can help, nobody can course correct, everybody's stressed out, everybody's well-being is shit. There's no collaboration, there's no meaningful sort of relaxation going on and decompression going on of the everyday stress. Nobody is available to course correct, nobody is available in emergencies, nobody's available to help, nobody's available to learn, nobody has the mental capacity to grow. Right? So you don't want to optimize for the pipeline to be full, you want to optimize for the flow of the critical element that serves the overall value stream of the business the most. And that the value stream starts and ends with the customer. Create demand, capture demand. Create demand, capture revenue. The engineering department is just one little piece there. Anyana, t-shirt size helps after the knowledge is built and there is low uncertainty. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, so when the uncertainty is low, the consequence of low uncertainty means is that the pieces are already about the same size, and then you can actually talk about, should we do this or that? What is now? What is next? What is later? And t-shirt size really help as a signal to the team that the backlog is in a quality state and that we can continue with our work. But I find that rather than doing t-shirt size estimations, do trunk-based development and then just check 2 metrics. Is somebody working on something without having opened a PR today? Number one. Number two, the PR that they opened, is it enormous or small? That's if you notice that it's exactly the same kind of estimation. Like it's still 1 or 2 effing big, and on the PR side is 1 or 0. Right? So it's still the same estimation going on, but it has a 1-day delay, but with the benefit of you're actually working on real tangible data rather than guessing. But it just takes 1 day of delay, and then you're working with real hard data rather than speculating, at the beginning of the week or at the beginning of the sprint. Right. So my recommendation is, if you can just delay a little bit and keep the fidelity of the KPI, if you keep the fidelity of the granularity of the KPI, delay a little bit and then work with real data tomorrow. If I told you something's going to be done end of week, I would plan 2 or 3 releases, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If on Tuesday I know that I'm not going to release 2 things on Wednesday, but I will maybe release what I started yesterday, I am already off schedule. And that's what you want to have a conversation about. Not about what was the t-shirt size at the beginning of starting the work. You want to have these conversations while work is undergoing, because then you want to pinpoint progress rather than guess progress when you know it's not going according to plan. That is the worst estimation. It's like the estimations are off, so let's try to estimate what percentage is done. That is such a waste of time. So use real data when possible. Wait. Okay, anonymous. I just want to know who I'm talking to. I wonder how many organizations still demand predictions on how it will complete a set of features that are requested by the product organization. So Synephen, I think it's Kynephen, right? I did pronounce that incorrectly at one point. I completely agree with you what you're saying, but I suspect these concepts are years ahead of where many organizations are. Yes, they are years ahead, because as I said, the median experience in the industry is the average engineer has less than 5 years of experience, so they have no idea what Kynephen is. They have no idea what Lean is. They might be doing Agile, but they haven't read the manifesto. They don't understand the manifesto. They might be doing Scrum, but they haven't read the handbook. They're not a good coach. They're not a good mentor. They're not very senior. They don't know architecture. They don't know what object-oriented truly means. They just know a framework very well, a language very well. They know how to speak English or some dominant language, and that's it. And use some scripts for CI/CD pipeline, right? So I agree. It is completely unrealistic to have expectations of this, which is why we as an industry need to get together and use the knowledge that we collectively have. You agree with that this should be done this way. I agree that this should be done this way. So every team that I touch, every team that I work with, every team that I coach, this is the knowledge that I'm sharing. If they're not adopting this knowledge, I'm doing something wrong. And so this is the biggest problem I should be working on, not their features. Their features, if they just sped up just slightly, if we save 1 hour every day for a developer, they get an extra month in a year for that developer. That's huge, right? And that could be, imagine how many weeks people planning, estimating, and having crisis meetings and dailies. Imagine how much time is being wasted just on wasteful processes, because organizations are not very good at approaching problems and building software, never mind understanding the complex domains. Some software companies struggle building software for simple domains. It's a great comment. I have no idea who asked this question, so I do have your name on LinkedIn. I don't know why this is not being shared, but privacy on LinkedIn is what it is. Let's not complain about it. Okay, that's that. Great questions today. I'm loving the engagement. Balázs, hello. That was Dennis probably, right? Because this seems like a reply. In my opinion, most organizations require estimates. They usually want to know the size cost of the change. It should not matter if it's 4 or 5 hours, but probably interested more. So I agree with the idea, but not with the premise, right? So I agree most organizations require estimates, but not of effort. Because most organizations, especially mature organizations, they have cash flow, they have a budget. So what they want to know is, we want to do X. Is X within our budget? If not, what change would make it fit our budget? See, that's the downstream problem they are trying to solve. But because they don't know better, what they ask for is estimates. But estimates don't give them the answer that they want. Because if you have a benevolent, experienced leader on the engineering side, they will tell them, well, why do you need this? What? It sounds like you want to do some, shuffling around. You have multiple ways of spending your budget. What do you want to do? Because estimating something creates this illusion of if I give you a budget and I ask you for estimates, your estimates are already working on the premise that you want to spend the entire budget. That's exactly what we shouldn't be doing. Right? So overall, this whole idea of estimations is more harmful than useful. Now, the business still needs to estimate strategy, delivery, put deadlines, but those are constraints that should be set and agreed upon and experimented with, not estimated. Right? Because a deadline is a deadline. A budget is a budget. Right? So if I give you a budget and I ask you for estimates, what I really want to know is, are you going to spend half of my budget? Are you going to spend most of my budget? Or am I going to need to find another budget for your budget, for our budget, for this project? That's all they need to know. Is this money enough? They just want a yes or no answer and then have the configuration of the project in such a way that the budget is being most effectively used. Because it's a business. We are putting, $1 million in, and then hopefully 1,200,000 comes out. That's the point. The effort estimation doesn't make these numbers match or go up or go down. And if anything, the estimates might provide a false sense of certainty that we're building the right thing, which is the actual conversation that we should be having. So whenever there's estimations like this going on, it's usually a sign that the engineering department is not involved or does not understand product strategy. So there's a strategic element missing, and the engineering department is just being used as a cost center for execution of wish lists. That's already a failing company in some regards, unless it is kept, unless cash flow is so stable because of some long-term whale clients. I might be generalizing, but this has been my experience. Thank you, Balázs. Great question. Great observation. There was no question mark. I'm sorry. Angel, hello. It sounds like I don't know where an old deposit might be. How much do I have to invest to find it? I don't know where an oil deposit might be. How much do I have to invest to find it? That's a great way of putting it. Yes. How can we estimate without any basis if estimating by itself is really complicated? So estimation is actually really easy. I can go back to the article, right? Because the idea beneath estimations is that whenever we are estimating, estimates are linear. If what you're exploring is exponential, right? So if the solutions place grows exponentially, then you're no longer estimating. Then you're exploring, right? Discovery is not estimation. The effort of discovery is activity in and of itself. So if it's exponential and has to be explored, then the investment, part of the budget, will have to be invested into discovery. This is why certain agencies have discovery phases, is because somebody asks them to estimate something, but they have no idea what they are estimating, so they have to discover it first. But agencies also have mixed incentives, so they might just take your money for discovery, even though they're not competent enough to build what you want to build. But they might, charge you a lot of money to give you a silly answer, whereas a seasoned veteran CTO or strategic technology thinker within your company might be able to give you a good gut feeling on this immediately without, spending $200K on an agency. On that note, estimates are not complicated. What's complicated is when we use estimates for what we shouldn't. Great question. Agree. And unfortunately, I think that this is the reality of many companies today. Yes, so I believe that was the previous, this is Dennis, right? On the maturity of companies and whether this is normal or not, whether this is expected or not. There are methods of doing an estimate, but it's just estimate. So Balázs has a series of articles on estimation, and I really liked your different ways of estimation. I might as well pull it up. Unfortunately, I closed the tab that I had open for that because I can't keep too many LinkedIn tabs open while I stream. Balázs, if you could link me the article real quick, I'll be really grateful. Otherwise, I'm gonna try finding it on your profile very quickly. But I can see that the stream is lagging because I opened up LinkedIn. I don't know why it's doing this. So you had point one, underestimation versus overestimation. That also touches very well on our first question. I would never overestimate just for the sake of overestimation. I would never bloat an estimate. I have stopped saying, oh, it's going to take much longer. I hate doing that because that's silly. Because then everybody's bloating it in some way. And what I've seen happen is when product owners know you're bloating it, they will then unbloat it in some Excel spreadsheet. So I would never bloat an estimate and say, hey, it's going to take longer. What I would do is I would say, when somebody is having a conversation like that with me, I would say, well, it sounds like you already want to build it. Do you want this project if it takes more than 3 months? They say no. Would the project be valuable enough if it takes less than 2 weeks? Well, no, I don't think we can do it in 2 weeks. They say that. I don't think it will be valuable if it's just 2 weeks. Okay. So it sounds like your budget is somewhere between a month and 2 months. Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so that's my estimate. Okay, so what do you want in the first half of that budget? That's how I would have this conversation. Right? Because then I turned it around. They already had a budget. They already have an estimate. They don't want to know the estimate. They want to have a conversation with me to figure out what we can get done for the budget, for the money that we do have. That's what they want. Right? When you go get a mortgage and you do all these calculations of how much you're earning, what you're generally doing it with two different strategies. Do I have enough money to buy this house? Or what is the maximum loan that I can get? And then I will find a house that matches maximum loan. And these are maximizing questions. These are not estimates. I have constraints and I want to maximize how much stuff I put within my constraints. That is not an estimation exercise. So I really liked part 3 of Balázs's. So this is part 3. So estimation methods. And I really liked the rolling wave estimation technique. I'm not so well versed with the terminology per se. But I suggest everybody, Balázs, if you could link the article. This is based on the book, Software Estimations, Demystifying the Black Art by Steve McConnell. This is a great approach to doing estimates. What I like to do is when I went solo and I had to do my own sales, I learned the why conversation and tactical empathy. So that's Jonathan Stark and Chris Voss. Those two mentors, coaches, helped me have the real conversation that stakeholders really want to have. But if you want to check out Balázs's article, please go ahead. So I just want to go back here and have this ready and stop share. So yes, estimations have uncertainty, so it's not necessarily bloating an estimate, although bloating is still better based on the book. Yes, I agree. Bloating is better. So giving yourself more room than less room is better, because if you get it wrong, you want to have time left to act on being wrong. And Niels Malotho talks about this, right? And this also touches on the very first question we had today on the stream, just if my estimate is wrong, what are the consequences? If you know your estimate is wrong, you want to be wrong, 30% into your estimate. So If you know your estimate is long, you want to have milestones for yourself where you check regularly, hey, am I on track? Because your estimate is 1 week, and you only figure out at the week mark that you're off, that you didn't do it. That's a binary. That's not estimation, that's binary. Am I done or not done at the end of the estimate? That is not useful, because then it creates the next question. Well, when will you be done? And then we already had this conversation and we were wrong. So why are we having it again? Right? So that's the part that doesn't make sense. The no estimation, sort of the sort of extreme lean community does something else. They just analyze your Jira tickets and they say there's a 60% chance if we create all tickets equally, using the same strategy and same team and same human bias, if all tickets can be done to a 50% guarantee within this time frame, then for each ticket, there's a 50% chance that it is this time frame. So it already saves you this estimation part, but you don't know which ticket will be which percentile of that distribution. But what you can know is that if you get outliers or the tail end of the distribution where it's weeks and months very early on into the project, then you know that this project is not going according to plan, and you should probably stop and reassess. Right? So you want to get the real hard no-go signals sooner. Not you don't want estimates on something that you're going to do anyway. Right? People generally want estimates when they want something to be implemented and they know it's not really worth it, and they will only do it if it's a small estimate. Such tickets should always be cut from the backlog, and estimates should never be invested for such tickets. If it's low value, somebody is estimating, hey, this is like a low-hanging fruit, can you do it quickly? You should always cut features like that. It's a distraction. These are what are these snacks? You don't want snacks in your the engineering team is your most expensive workforce in your company. You don't want them snacking. You want them working only on what is most important. So no low-hanging fruits. Usually. Anyana, I usually revise the estimations during a stand-up or in a relevant meeting. That's how I correct any misestimation. Okay. I mean, that sounds managerial. You might be a tech lead. Could you give us some context on what your position, what your relationship with the team is? Are you talking about your own work as an engineer? I think context is very important here. So what I'm asking is, are you part of the team or not? Right. So are you managing the team and you're external, or are you a tech lead and you're sort of with the team and then you know that you're correcting your own estimations, or do you ask the team to correct them as they go? Angel, I love the chess analogy. Also, it is really interesting to think that experience doing similar stuff can substitute experimentation. So at any point, we may choose to hire an external agency if our efforts aren't working. Thank you. You're welcome, Angel. So those estimation methods in part 3 are also taken from a Business Analysis 101 course by Michael Boyle. But I like your approach, Dennis, of driving a meaningful conversation. Every estimate has some uncertainty, so there's a chance to miss it. If the budget is limited, then the best option you have is to know the priorities of your clients. Exactly. And then align the scope accordingly. This is the only win-win situation. Right, so you're a contributor, Anyana. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So Anyana is a contributor. I usually revise estimation during a stand-up or in a relevant meeting. Yeah, so you revise your own estimates or you help the team. You sort of collaborate with your team to revise the estimate. I think this is a very healthy approach. Yes. Good job. If you have more to share on the way your team works, I would love to hear it. Back to Balazs, and then align scope accordingly. This is the only win-win situation. Yeah, so like the humans involved with the project already have their own estimates, right? They already have a no-go. If I give an estimate of, hey Dennis, how long does this take? 18 months. Okay, we're not doing it. They will say, okay, we're not doing it. Right? Because they might not know how long it takes, but they might have a no-go zone. Right? So they are asking for estimations because in their mind, there is a linear scale. And if you say a number larger than their linear scale of their no-go zone, it's a no-go. What they don't understand is that when they ask you for this, if you mistake it for them actually wanting estimates for every work item or the project, which is an exponential discovery task, then what you're doing is an exponential hard exercise. And what they wanted to know is only, does it fit in my budget? And if not, well, how much fit? How much does fit? Like, what can I get for my money? I have this much. What can I get? Right? Like, imagine you go to a restaurant in a country that you don't know the currency, you don't know the food, you can't read the menu, you don't speak the language. You tell them, I have this much money. I would like to have lunch. What can I get for this? What you wouldn't say is, can you give me an estimate of all of your food items, please? What do they taste like? What do they taste like based on the amount of non-dollar currency that I'm holding here right now? How many can I get? I want lunch. Like, can I have lunch for this much money? Like, what's best? What's best for this much money? And let the expert decide. Right? That's how you want to treat a product owner who's asking for estimates. What's your budget? Okay, what's the outcome? Oh, I'm hungry and I want to feed my market. I want to create market demand for this feature. Okay. What's the best way to do that? Oh, we can show them this and this, or maybe we can show proof that this works, or we should probably create a case study with one of our clients. So we'll do it for free the first time. Okay. How much time and effort are we willing to invest into this case study? Oh, probably 3 months. Okay. Let's see what we can do in 3 months. If you want the case study written by the end of the 3 months, maybe we should really have it in the hands of the client in 6 weeks. That means that we really need to be careful what it is we're building. So we need to understand what it is they're going to use, which means that at this point now, we would already need to know what it is exactly, what new feature that they expect to have. And if you don't have it now, then they know that, okay, they need to go away and have this conversation with somebody. But then once they have the answer, they know that they can expect something in 6 weeks. And that's the conversation that you want to have with them. Right? Yes, I do love restaurant metaphors. Because our service industry is actually, our software is actually very similar to a restaurant. It's a high stress situation. The kitchen is this black box that nobody sees. And there are all of these unexpected, sort of very emotional tangents going on in the dining room, which have nothing to do with how the food is prepared. And that's very much software. Plus, the diners probably don't know how to cook what they're eating, but they might critique it. So, so there's this whole great analogies going. I think the food takes too long to prepare. I'm not a chef. I don't know what's going on, but I think it takes too long, right? And I, as the paying client, I say, I'm going to sit down, order something. If it takes more than 1 hour to arrive, I'm going to leave and not pay, regardless of how long it takes to cook. Regardless of whether you told me it's going to take 45 minutes. If it's not 45 minutes, I'm going to leave anyway. I don't actually want the estimate. I just want to guarantee. I just want to tell you that, hey, I have this much budget for this amount of project. If it's not done in 3 months, I'm cutting the project. I'm cutting budget. That means that you will have contributed to something that for which we wasted, 200K, $500,000, 50K. And then that's on everybody's resume. It's like, hey, we did something, we found something, we invested a lot of money into figuring out it didn't work, to the degree where the product person didn't want to continue working with us. Or that was deliberate and conscious and say, we have a long project, so I want to spend a part of the budget figuring out what it is exactly that we need to build. That's the conversation you want to have. Whatever you do, whether you estimate, don't estimate, t-shirt size, whatever, build a prototype, plan, you're always doing the same thing. You're working on creating demand and creating knowledge. You need to decide as a team whether you're going to do that deliberately or clumsily or accidentally, or when you actually stumble on something that's successful and then actually, you know what? I'm talking about this, but I actually prepped for this. I have at the stage. Oh, that's actually sharing already, but it's not on stage. I like that. So I can share, but it's not on stage. So I can just do this and prepare it and then share. Oh, yes. Right. So this is a typical project. Is everybody still here? I know we're 90 minutes in. I'm going to start wrapping up soon. Just Michael Boyle, hello. That's the book author. Mr. Boyle, hello. Oh, Michael is the author of the book that Balázs mentioned in estimations. Oh, it's great to have you, sir. Okay, now I need to check out the book. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Balázs, for introducing us and creating that spark and sharing your network. What did I miss? I just want to check what I missed so far. Contributor, restaurants. Okay, I think we addressed that. Okay, so this is a typical naive project, right? So you don't have go-to-market strategy. You don't have knowledge about the project. So somebody asks you, this is my budget, what can we build? And then you start planning features, you estimate the features, and you put the features in the roadmap. And then when somebody decides, good enough, you go to market. And then the feedback comes in. Bugs. Nobody's using it. Everybody's using it, but it's wrong. Bad UX, good UX. It's kind of working, but it's loading forever. Yeah, it's loading forever because we cut corners in the architecture to go to market faster. Right? So there's this whole mess and mishmash going on. And a lot of organizations and tech teams that are in a hurry, work like this. Knowledge is being created, right? But knowledge is being created here, right? Here. This is where knowledge is being created. Which means that if knowledge is being created there on the right side, then the level of knowledge across the project is this. So all of the features were created with lack of knowledge. And then when you get the knowledge, you're no longer working on the features. So now you need to decide whether I'm going to go back and change everything or start working on new features and throw everything away. And these decisions are hard. And this is clumsy and unnecessary because there's a better way of working. Because you could also instead work like this. You could create something to create knowledge and to create demand. And then ideally, the demand matches the type of knowledge that you just created so that you know how to respond to the demand. Now, maybe there's no demand, but you shouldn't respond to no data. No data doesn't mean that there's no demand. No data just means that you don't understand what's going on. So you're asking the wrong questions and you built the wrong thing to create demand. That means that whatever you plan to do is now off track. You don't understand what's going on. You don't understand your user. Because if you did, they would be demand. Right? This is typical product engineering cycle. This is healthy. They just keep going on this loop, right? So the amount of knowledge here that's being created is we create a little bit of knowledge. Even if the knowledge is our plan was wrong, there's zero demand for it. Stop. And then you sort of forget. You say, okay, pivot. Okay, we create new knowledge. Oh, there's demand for this. Okay, so now we're creating this feature with much more knowledge than we did in the other scenario. Then we keep repeating this cycle. And then we create demand with what's already there, and we boost demand by giving to the market what we promised. And hopefully that will verify our current level of understanding and teach us something new and tell us that we got a few things wrong. So some knowledge will go away, but then we'll build better features and we keep doing this. And over time, you know, what differentiates the big companies from the small companies? The big companies know how to automate the demand creation tap. They know how to turn the tap on. You know, when iPhone releases a new phone, they turn the tap on. They create artificial demand for you wanting to buy a new iPhone. They create events. They make the old iPhone obsolete, and they may make it all about the new iPhone. That's not accidental. That's part of their product engineering cycle. That's part of how they create code, and that's part of how they create hardware. Right? So if you want to mimic that kind of, you know, it's much easier if you don't have hardware. So if you're just a B2B SaaS company or a B2C SaaS company or a product or a data product company, you can just create demand. Then once you learn how demand is created, you can automate the creation of demand by saying, hey, this is a limited time offer. We'll only work with this amount of clients. We have this amount of features. We really can't force on scale. We just want to work on understanding and building good relationships with 1 or 2 big clients, and you keep building on that, and then you keep creating demand, and you serve 1 and then 2 and then 3 big clients at the same time. You learn from them, and then you say, oh, actually, based on what we learned, we can commoditize this little piece. And then you could capture a big market from that. And then you continue with your enterprise end, sort of high-end ticket and the low-end ticket, product differentiation. And the engineering team then builds on this knowledge and continues with features. But this engineering team is constantly following market demand rather than following tickets about, hey, let's build a feature and maybe it will be good. This whole maybe it will be good, that's la la land. You got to be deliberate. You got to know what questions you're asking. I am building something to create demand. So if I'm creating something to build demand, and then I'm creating 10 other features so that the engineering team is busy, if there's no demand, I now need to know what happens with the other 10 features that I put in the pipeline with bad knowledge. This is where most companies go wrong, because they overhire. Generally, the problem is that somebody overhired at some point, and now the pipeline is full with stuff that nobody needs. And you might even know that nobody needs it, but you're still hoping that maybe it will turn out well. Okay. This then becomes a more complex topic about business analysis and business requirements gathering. Right now AI is a real large craze, and with a lot of clients that I'm working on, everybody knows that they can create demand by putting something AI related into their product offering, but they don't know what it is. But that is a good question. It's like, how can I create demand by putting something AI related into my product? Like, what do I need to experiment with? Right? And then that's a good start. But it's very rare. And, AI was just this strong push that, yeah, maybe everybody should be asking this question, at least on this industry, and at least in this scale, and at least at this point in time right now. Okay. Jose is still with us. Victor, hello. Okay, so everybody's still here. Let me look at the agenda. Oh, I see. So, Michael, I misunderstood. So, Michael Boyle, you had a course on estimation. So, Balaj is sending me a message and explaining my mix-up. I'm sorry. Redacted. So, yes, thank you for being with us, Michael. So Balaj just let me know that he really liked your course, and that I said it's a book, but it's actually a course. So thank you for correcting me. Okay. So, agenda. Did we cover everything that I wanted to cover? Let's see real quick. 1, 2, 1, 2. Estimation. Why estimate? Estimations that provide certainty and collaborate with stakeholders. Yes, so recap. Let's recap. Let's relax. It's Thursday. Let's recap. We had a book club yesterday, so now I'm free. This is my last call today. I'm not in a rush. Oh, feels good. Estimates that provide certainty are those that provide guarantees of outcome. So when I'm asking you for an estimate, when I'm asking a painter for an estimate for the walls, I might not care how long it takes. I want a guarantee that it won't be, if they say we estimate it's 100 euros, I want a guarantee that it won't be over that. Or maybe I'm okay with 120, but I definitely don't want to pay 500. Right? That's why I'm estimating. I don't actually want to know exactly how much it's going to be, but I know I want to have that comfort that once they give me an estimate, that the error is a linear scale of the estimate, not an exponential one. Whenever there's exponentiality involved, we're talking about discovery, not estimation, right? So when I tell you, hey, how much does this house cost? 500K, or sometimes 5 million when it's in season. Well, that's not helpful to me. If I need 6 months to get the money, or if it takes me 2 years to get the money, and then to get a mortgage, and then 30 years to pay it off, I don't want that kind of estimate. I want the estimate to be linear. and the error to be in a linear scale with the estimate. I don't want the error to be exponential. It's like, oh, 1 day or a week. It's like, oh, we can do it in a month, or if things go wrong, a year. I don't want that. Like that doesn't fly well with any stakeholder. And that's the nature of software, because sometimes we guess and then we get it wrong, and then we get it wrong by a lot. Then there's the other thing, about certainty. What kind of estimates give guarantees of certainty? When you estimate something and it's 1 day plus minus 2, and you estimate something else and it's 2 days plus minus 1, if you add them together, the mean is linearly larger, but the error is much larger. Like, people aren't very good at statistics, and they won't understand this. And usually what people do is they just ignore the error, and they just add the means or the medians together. And this is a whole battlefield. You don't want to encourage this. So you don't want to estimate each ticket, which is already guesswork, and they have errors. And some of them have exponential errors, some of them have linear errors. Right? So something you worked on before will have a linear error. Something you've never worked on before, and that's Thomas. Thomas asked a question like that. A lot of things that I work on, I never done before. So his errors are exponential in nature, not linear. Right? So you don't want to mix exponential errors with linear errors and then add them together and hopefully set a deadline and the budget on that. That's not going to fly well. Not because you shouldn't be lying or you shouldn't be guessing, but you shouldn't be having the conversation. Like, you together as a company should understand that there's a better way of doing this if you just talk to each other more and don't get distracted with providing estimations when you know they're not useful. Usually people push, and then engineers give up, and then they give estimates. And then that's when the system breaks down. So what gives certainty to stakeholders? Well, what gives certainty to stakeholders is that you make them feel that you understand them. That's what gives them certainty. And then the guarantee that you can give them is, I'm going to give this project of yours my full attention, or half of my attention. Or, I know you're tight on budget, so I'm going to try not to spend more than half of it. What's your budget? What's the no-go area? What is the minimum amount of effort that I should invest for this to be valuable to you? What do you definitely not want to wait? Have that conversation with them to get the boundaries, the linear boundaries. And then, knowing that it might be exponential, try to set a milestone that is more than a half away from the deadline. They don't spend their entire budget. Like, create knowledge at the beginning, create market demand, build something for them that will create knowledge for you and help them create market demand, right? So create something that you can use and the marketing team can use, or the sales team can use. Maybe the CEO with the business analysts, maybe they can use it together to figure out, okay, how do we need to spin this to make it really sexy, and then try to sell it to a demographic. Oh, it got some success, but not as much as we expected. Maybe we got the demographic wrong. To target that demographic, we need to add something to this. Okay, can we add that? Yes, we can add that. Then you try it, and you do this a few times, and then you either give up, which is a good sign, or because you save most of the budget if you give up, or you do find a demographic for which it's a good match, and then now you have real people, real leads. Now you can survey them. Now you can ask them questions. Now you can give them prototypes. You can actually gauge their interest by saying, here's a sign up, or here's a sign up. It's going to be this much after 6 months, after the first year, but right now it's free. But you do need to leave your credit card. And that's how you do market research. And then you know that when that happens, and then you actually get signups of people who don't pay anything, but they gave their credit card, you now have proof of market demand. So you can rest assured that whatever it is you're building is valuable to somebody for some reason. And then you can have a conversation with them. Like, okay, which part? It's like, if I start cutting features, what would make you leave if I cut it accidentally? And then you estimate that, right? Because that's the risky part. It's the product strategy that's risky. The engineering strategy is not risky. The engineering strategy just matches the risk of the product strategy. But it has nothing to do with estimations. Estimations do not make the product less risky. It is market feedback that makes the product less risky. It is acting on feedback that make the product strategy less risky. And it's the engineers that need to act on product feedback. That's why it's so hard. If the product designer, product owner could act on their feedback, like they could make changes to the product, they would do it. Then they wouldn't need an engineering department. But the complexity stems from that they ask the questions, they understand the context of the questions, and you need to act on it. So the knowledge needs to be created together. And the estimates that will calm them down are the guarantees that you are a professional who understands their context and who will calm them down in saying, you know what, nobody knows what's going on. This seems like a risky product strategy. Let's build this in a quarter of the budget and see if our critical assumptions are correct. If they're not, we'll cancel and we'll keep 3/4 of the budget, and then we try something else with the remaining budget. Or if we don't do that, we can go all in, and then shame on you if things go wrong. How does that sound? Right? And then, they're on board because they just want more certainty. They already know that they don't understand. So what if they would do it their own way, it would be a mess. They just want to know that what you're doing is less of a mess. They can trust you as a professional. You just need to give them the guarantee that when they ask you accidentally for estimates and you play their game, you're just working off of their fear and chaos, and then you create more fear and chaos. They just want guarantees that, hey, that you understand that they're fearful and chaotic, and that here's what we can do. I've done this before. It usually doesn't go well. So because it doesn't go well, let's have these safeguards in place. Let's test this. Let's test that. Let's build this to test that. If you don't know what we're building, let's not build it. Let's have a conversation instead. Maybe you want to build something else instead. Let's try to make the project go away and then see who complains. If nobody complains, let's build that other thing. We have so many things in the pipeline. That's sort of recap of today's conversations. Angel, in mobile game dev, it is quite usual to run fake ads to see if a product interests users before even starting to build a product. Yes, that's brilliant. Yes, that's brilliant. So that is creating demand, because if they do respond to ads, you have tangible data, who responded, what was the demographic, and you also get more actionable advice even, it's like what games were the people playing who clicked the ads? So not only do you have market feedback on that you should build it, but you also know which demographic plays that other game that you can capture to your adjacent to the game that you might be building, right? So this is not only quantitative but also qualitative. This is a great suggestion. Disclaimer: I'm not a marketing expert I did work in ad tech as an engineer with Ty and a few others. Ty has a stream tomorrow, by the way. Ty has started streaming as well. But I'm not an advertising expert or marketing expert in any way. But I know that this is a crucial part of product engineering, and that we have to play ball. We have to play with the team, with the non-engineering team especially. Better collaboration means better outcomes. Better collaboration means better requirements. Better requirements means that I build less waste, right? So if I help product, if I'm leading and coaching a team that asks better questions to product, they will create a better product strategy. So they will have better market feedback. And then if we work on, I just want to share something. So Brian Finster, I don't have it here. Damn it. Okay. Oh, not this one. Oh, I'm lagging. Oh, not this. This is a bad idea. Okay. Brian Finster shared an article today about the different delays of metrics and fidelity, right? So market demand and market feedback has the biggest delay. And the DORA metrics and things like cycle time and lead time and lean or Scrum or Agile, they have the best fidelity. They have the quickest feedback loop. So what you want to make sure is that you're constantly improving on the short feedback cycles, TDD, trunk-based development, code reviews, and then you're only really delaying major decisions on your roadmap for the metrics, the KPIs that have actual delay for real-world reasons. right? So if the market needs 1 month to tell you whether a product is successful, make sure it only takes you 1 month to course correct by keeping all of the high frequency metrics fast, right? So if it takes 1 month to course correct, if you need a month to merge a large branch, it'll take you 2 months or 3, right? If it's the first one, and then going out and then going back in and then changing it and then merging it again, right? So that's why trunk-based development and TDD, TBD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, code reviews, pairing over code reviews, these low fidelity, high frequency activities, you can always optimize even if you don't know what the product strategy is, what the product team is doing in regards to strategy. So that's also what I'm focusing on. When I see that the team that I'm coaching has no idea what they're doing regarding strategy, we just optimize the slowest, biggest win KPI on their delivery cycle. Usually that's long PRs, or review takes forever, or there's no test coverage. So they need that slow feedback cycle to have the user tell them that something that they should have tested isn't working, right? That is then what we fix. Because as a company, you'll have enough problems already regarding delay on some decisions. You just want to make sure that you can act on market feedback as fast as possible. If the delay on market feedback is 1 month, try to act on it in exactly 1 month. Build something, have downtime, and then act on it. Or as the person said, if it's irreversible, the moment you launch something, you need to plan your next launch. If it's like a hardware, or what was it, like guidance for robotic arms, right? So I'm imagining when you build something, you're immediately gathering feedback because you have to build the next thing that's under 2 years or 3 years from now. So in that kind of environment, the lag is so long that you need to incorporate feedback as much as you can, and as late as possible in your commit as late as possible. Don't overcommit at the beginning, because as we said at the beginning of the project, very bad knowledge, very bad market demand, very bad product market fit. So don't make major decisions when you know the least amount of stuff. Don't create these like estimations of roadmaps and don't even understand the product. Once you understand the product, create demand. If you don't know how to create demand, you don't have product market fit. You don't understand how to sell the product. So don't build it. Don't estimate 3 months, a year to build something that you don't know how to sell. Because if you invest a lot of time building it, you'll have to get that back. You're doing arbitrage. So if you spend $1 million on building it, you'll need to get, by the time you're done, $2 million back just to break even. Because the delay also costs you something. Plus, people are very bad at cost of delay. So while you were building this, you were not building that other thing that might have been more profitable. So there's not only what you actually lost on your bet and then trying to get it back to break even, but you also had the opportunity cost of your competition might have done the correct decision and acted upon it, and you didn't, and now you're behind. So there's also the opportunity cost, the cost of delay, of the other things in the pipeline that might have been profitable, and you had them available, and your product owner did suggest it, but the engineering team was busy to act on it. Is that demand? Okay, so this is the same question, but I believe it was edited, and this is how it was synced to my StreamYard. Is that demand generating engineering? Yes, I would say so. Yeah. It was sent multiple times. Yeah, and I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner. Yeah, this is demand generation, right? So if you look at most of the solopreneur, the kind of hustle entrepreneurs who have built a business at 25, like a SaaS business or marketing business or sales business or AI business now, especially on companies like Acquire.com, if you follow the Hermosi couple, they're constantly talking about entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, who are successful not because they know how to build something, but because they know how to generate demand, because they know how to get in touch with content creators, they know how to get in touch with with key people in the buyer sphere, influencers or authority figures, brand ambassadors, who know what their customers or companies, if it's B2B, want, represent them, and give them an early voice so that they can do market research on them. And if there's just no market demand, then they don't build it, which means they've saved a lot of money, and now they have a lot of money left to do this experiment again and try to figure out what's valuable. The worst thing you can do as a company is you're running an experiment, but in order to figure out if this experiment will be successful, you have to build the software first. That's the worst kind of experiment you can run. Because if it's not successful, you spent your entire budget. Right? So you need to build leaner experiments. I've been in startups before. They have survived, but it was a rough ride. And still, the culture, even today, 10 years later, suffered from the decisions that they made. In that they just wanted to run experiment after experiment, and they would try something, build it, production ready, and then it wouldn't work, and then now they're stuck with it, and now let's do another experiment, but we also need to maintain this thing we built. And then that just kept piling up, technical debt, technical debt, technical debt, technical debt. And then, it opens up. There might be a performance problem, database size problem, migration problem, security breach problem, risk exposure. The complexity is such that now mistakes go under the radar, unit testing is much harder, quality goes down, friction goes up, we get slower. Once we actually get to the important piece of experiment that actually works, we have so much technical debt that we can't even implement it at scale. So we've tried, 100 experiments, and then once we got to the thing we wanted, there was so much technical debt that we couldn't easily adopt it because we kept all the users up to all the failed experiments and all the tech up to all the failed experiments. And then everybody got so attached to what they build that nobody sort of wanted to say, hey, we have, 1 million users and 1,000 features, and only 7 of them are used. Can we cut off the other 993 features? And that was a difficult conversation. And then that company always wobbled under their own weight, under their own craft of having just built way too many, too expensive and too slow experiments, spending too much of their budget, requiring constant injections of capital to just keep the lights on. And then that kind of company, this was 10 years ago, that kind of company then required constant investment, and the percentage of keeping the lights on activities much greater than the percentage of serving our current, giving good high quality service to our current customers. I'm coaching a team now that is in a similar phase, but they're much more agile about it. There was something in the last 5-10 years that made companies a little bit more dynamic, I would say, to be thinking about this sort of rejection of big tech corporate kind of thinking, and everybody's like lean, like let's try to experiment, let's do stuff with AI. So there's much more of that nowadays, luckily. Wait, hang on. Okay, one more question. Alex, I do recall you from our previous stream last week, Alex, so thank you for slowly becoming a regular. Yes. How does this relate to migration projects? When we know what the demand is, because the product is successful, but we want to rewrite due to overwhelming technical debt. These are the projects, in my experience, where estimations have been the hardest to give and also easily up being the most waterfall. I would say this is not worth it. You use the word rewrite due to overwhelming technical debt. What you need to do is learn from your mistakes and make sure that all the new stuff you create has lower technical debt. Right? So a high quality project is created by creating this, which you describe, and then refactoring that and building quality into that kind of system. Right? So you don't avoid the pain. You do the thing that's painful more often, and you make it less painful with every incision. So you invest a lot of time into refactoring what's already there and has market demand, has proof of market viability, and is actually operational on real systems, and you refactor it, you decouple it, you sort of pull it apart, you introduce seams, you introduce abstractions, and you try to make the system that's already there more malleable, more easier to change, even if you disagree with how it's built. If you don't know how to do that, then whatever it is you're building as a rewrite will be worse than what you've created. Because the original project was created under hard labor, hard constraints, budget constraints, not knowing whether it's going to be successful. So now all of those conditions will be a little bit more relaxed, which means that there's a chance that you'll create a bigger monster. So definitely don't do these kinds of projects, and there's no point estimating them. The best way to estimate it is, I like to think, and this is, let's close off on this. Estimation is not about having a crystal ball like the one on crafting tech teams. I added that crystal ball to just so it's a little bit more memorizable when it lands in your inbox. Estimation is not about having the crystal ball and then trying to accurately predict the future. The point of estimations is to say, I'm not going to estimate, but I have a theory. If I'm right, I can build this part in 2 days. Right? So the entire project is large, but if I'm right, I can build this part in 2 days and show you something. That's the conversation you want to have. And then 2 days later, you have a conversation that usually goes something like, I thought I could build that thing in 2 days, but then once I started working on it, I realized that this is actually a much more complex problem, but some of it we already have solved, but it has to be then connected with that nasty system. So maybe we can use part of the budget to clean that up and then connect it. And now I know much better what to do and what not to do, so we can split out the project into 2 phases. And I think we should start with this prototype here and have that as our pilot project to refactor, right? Because usually you're doing refactors, you're doing 2 things. You're refactoring in order to add a new feature, and the economics of this are that if I refactor, it'll make adding this feature cheaper. But in absence of this feature, there's nothing that you're making cheaper. Right? If I don't have any future features, you should not be refactoring. Does that make sense? Right? So if there's a feature freeze, there's no need to refactor, because nothing would ever be added to the system. But that creates a paradox, which means the only way to refactor the system is for somebody to want to add something to it, and that's very slow right now. Right? So when you want to do a full rewrite, you need to have new behavior as well, but you need to understand why it's hard to do, what the code smells are, what are the code coupling problems, or for object-oriented languages, what are the connaissance problems? What are the dirty connaissance, the connaissance of meaning? No, not meaning, sorry, that's the good one. Connaissance of value, connaissance of, okay, I need to cheat here. Connaissance of value, connaissance of, I'm losing the audience here, I'm sorry, this is getting too late. Connaissance of value, connaissance of timing, connaissance of identity, and connaissance of, there's one more, I can't remember it right now. The point is, the system that you're trying to refactor or rewrite might have bad coupling. Coupling is necessary, but they might have bad coupling in the breach locality, so they have bad coupling to things that are non-local to the system. So on the integration side especially, right? So it's like this webby mess, and it's connected to external systems in that messy way. And that's why you can't do anything that you would like to do with that project. So when the market demand changes, you're completely stuck. You can't shift the code to now serve a different audience in a different way with a completely different feature. So learn that. That's what I do on coaching primarily. I have the team say, well, why don't you want to touch this project? Well, because it's messy and old and everything is coupled. Well, can you identify what's wrong with it? Can you identify why it's so nasty to work in that code base? Well, no, it's just legacy. Yeah, but what makes it legacy? What makes it legacy, and is what you're producing every day less legacy than the legacy that you have? This brings us back to Michael Faddis' quote. What is legacy code? Legacy code is code that is hard to change, hard to understand, that is not test covered. And a lot of companies build this as the default. So it's legacy by the time even before it gets shipped to the user. Anjana, I think what you're saying is reflecting the right thing. Yes, that as well, but also just educate your team more on refactoring, on coupling, on decoupled architectures, on decoupled workflows. Maybe you don't have a coupling problem with, and this is related to team topologies. Maybe you don't have a coupling problem with the code. Maybe the team is too coupled to the other parts of the system, other parts of the organization, because that's also a coupling problem. The team also needs to be decoupled and have locality. If the team decides, oh, I want to try this and talk to the customer, that's the ideal team. They add a feature, they talk to the customer says, this is great, how much? If they're coupled to QA and coupled to this and coupled to the manager and coupled to the product and coupled to this and coupled to the sales team and coupled to the customers, that's also a problem. That also needs to be decoupled, right? So there might be organizational coupling, there might be object design coupling, there might be data coupling, database coupling, maybe microservice coupling, maybe it's a distributed monolith. There might be process coupling, maybe you don't know how to deploy. Maybe the branches are too old. Maybe the process is too slow. Maybe you're code reviewing too much and not pairing enough. Maybe you're writing tests, but they are testing implementation, not behavior. So they're coupling you to the bad decisions, not to the behavior that you want to serve to the customer. Maybe you're coupled to the past and not to the future where you want to go, right? It's worth tackling all of this, but there's too much of it. There's anxiety inducing. So as a leader, your responsibility is to figure out what is our biggest problem right now for what we want to do now and the next thing on the horizon for next week. And then iterate on that. There's 50-ish weeks in a year. If you iterate on the biggest problem every week, you'll make great progress in a year. That's all it takes. But it takes constant progress, right? If you say your roadmap takes 3 months, if the only point where you reassess whether you are working correctly and there's any improvements to be done is 4 times per year, then you're not moving fast enough. You're not growing fast enough. If you say, oh, this takes 2 weeks, see you in 2 weeks. It's like when you talk at the same level of cadence as your estimations are. If your sprints are 2 weeks, if the only time you talk to the customer is once per 2 weeks, that's not fast enough. A 2-week sprint means 10 business days. That means I've spoken to the customer 10 times per developer. And because the developers are then too busy working so that they can't do that, that's why you have a product owner for. But if you talk to the customers once per team, per sprint, then you don't need a product owner. Because then you talk to them so infrequently that anybody can do it because you're not investing enough time in it anyway. That's the hard part. It's calling out the bull S in the process and saying we're not getting feedback fast enough. If somebody wants an estimate on a large project, ask them, how will you know we're on track? You're the engineer. How will you know that I'm on track? You want me to build something for 3 months. How will you know that I'm making positive progress? How do I know whether I should continue on quality or more features or faster features or faster launch versus tech debt later? How do I know that? How do we make those decisions? Have that conversation. And if you don't know how, DM me. Okay, that's it from me. You've been a great audience. This is a lot of fun. You guys make it worth it because I get to come on stream and talk for 2 hours, even though I have a cold. And I like to think that this is work. And when I show up, your presence makes this feel not like work. And that's the best gift that you could have given me. So thank you so much. This was great. I hope you've learned something about estimates. If you have any thoughts, I would like to see your reviews, comments, reposts, and then, what did you learn? If you have suggestions for next week, we are talking about decoupled architecture with Adrian Stanek next week. We're going to announce it tomorrow, I think, with the agenda. We're still finalizing that. But if you have any suggestions about engineering culture, any questions you'd like to have us talk about and discuss in public in front of this audience and give you the chance to collaborate, slide me a DM. You can talk to me on the book club Slack or on the newsletter, Crafting Tech Teams on Substack. So yeah, hope to see you soon. Hope to see you next week. And have a lovely weekend. And see you soon. I'll let you go with some lovely elevator music, as always. And I'll see you again next time. Ciao.